Welcome to Let's Talk Business. I'm Priyanshi Sharma, and as always, we'll start with how the markets performed today. Well, equity markets ended higher for the third straight trading session, and that was led by gains in index heavyweight Reliance Industries, FMCG, and metal stocks as well. Now, the key benchmark indices created in a narrow band as investors remained cautious ahead of the US Fed meet outcome that is going to come out later tonight. My colleague Alex Matthew joins us from the BQ Prime newsroom with all the market action.
A range-bound session for the Indian equity markets with the benchmark indices ending about 0.2% higher. The Nifty 50 ending at just about 18,750 or thereabouts. And it traded in a very narrow range, less than 100 points. We ended not too far away from the high point of the day. The broader markets more or less mirroring that trend. You had the mid-cap index that gained about 0.2%, and you had the small-cap index that ended higher by just about 0.1% or so. This is par for the course because there is a major decision in world economics that is just a few hours away. The US Fed will determine the course of monetary policy. It's largely expected to hold the rates steady, and this is the first pause after a series of rate increases, as many as 10 in a row. So that is the context. Of course, in trade today, you had a few counters that moved very sharply, despite the fact that you had very small moves for the benchmark. So Reliance Industries, it gave up a little ground towards the end of the session, but it ended with gains of over 1%, contributing quite a large chunk of the gains of the Nifty 50. But when you talk about a few of the other gainers, the top 5 gainers, you'll see Tata Consumers at the top of the list, about 5% higher thereabouts, no real trigger, but then this was arguably the stock of the day. You saw Grasim that gained about 2% or thereabouts. Then you had the metal counters that both Tata Steel as well as JSW Steel ending with gains of over 2%, and the metal index as a whole proving to be the bright spot in trade yet again. Among the losers, you had few to speak about 20 or thereabouts out of the Nifty 50 losing ground, but the top losers were all in the financial pack. So you had Bajaj Finance losing about 1%, you had Axis Bank, you had IndusInd Bank as well, and then Bharti Airtel lost about 0.8%. Now, among the other names that I would mention, Vodafone Idea was in focus. It gained quite a bit at the start of trade, but then lost ground over the course of the session. It ended with gains of about 3% or thereabouts, but the volumes were very high, and this is because of buzz that there might be a capital infusion by the promoters. You had Shyam Metallics that was up over 7% in trade today because pellet prices have gone higher. You have APL Apollo Tubes, which once again was one of the stocks of the day. The management spoke to BQ Prime, and they are quite bullish about the demand trends going forward. You have CDSL that underperformed in trade today, lost ground because of a bulk deal. BSE sold stake in that counter, and then you had Tata Consumer, which I already mentioned. The context, as I said, is all about the Fed, and that's what we're watching out for ahead of trade tomorrow.
So we'll wait for that Fed decision later tonight. But one important positive sign for the economy that inflation is easing consistently for the past few months. India's wholesale price-based inflation fell to a 3-year low in the month of May. And this was because of easing prices of food, fuel and manufactured goods as well. Now, this is the second straight month when the wholesale price inflation has been in the negative zone, meaning that prices have actually fallen if you compare the prices this May with the prices in May 2022. But this has been mainly on account of a higher base and falling prices of fuel. Last year, we're comparing these prices with last year when inflation was at a record high of around 15.9%. So definitely prices are falling from that record high levels. Now, meanwhile, food prices also eased during the same period, primarily contributed by fall in prices of mineral oils, basic metals, food products, textiles and natural gas as well. And while we wait for the US Fed decision later tonight, with the US still far off to control the raging inflation or to the target level of 2%, Manhattan Venture Partners head of research, Mr. Santosh, says that the likely pause will be to assess the impacts of the Fed's previous decisions. Listen in.
4% rate is the headline CPI, and the Fed doesn't look at the headline CPI. And there's a base effect there on the headline The Fed looks at the core inflation data, which was 5.1%, and the core PCE that comes a little later, that's also running quite high in the 4% area. So I think their target is 2%. So that's still a long way to go. This data, don't get me wrong, this data was good. It was not hotter than expected, which was important. It gives enough reason to justify a pause only because the Fed wants to see the lag effects play out. They want to see the credit tightening going on in the market, that play out. So it gives them a little extra time to kind of see the lag effects of that. But I think when he comes out tomorrow at the press conference, he's going to make it very clear, and I hope he does, that this is a hawkish pause. We're not stopping. We will continue till we crack this nut called inflation, which is just not coming under control.
And the primary question here is, will the US Federal Reserve maintain the pause on interest rate hikes? Well, Fed's chairman is all set to announce its policy decision later today. It'll happen later today in the night, and the decision comes in the backdrop of cooling inflation in the United States, with consumer inflation coming in at 4% year on year in the month of May. My colleague Jaspreet Kalra joins us with what market experts are expecting for this crucial global event.
Right. Thanks for that. So yes, the US Federal Reserve is all set to deliver a very key decision on Wednesday. That is late on Wednesday evening for India time. Now, after starting to hike interest rates in March 2022, the Fed has delivered a total of 10 rate hikes so far, which has taken benchmark interest rates in the United States from below 0.5% to over 5% now. Now, the Fed's decision on interest rates also comes as inflation has started to show signs of cooling in the United States. Consumer inflation in the country was recorded at 4% year on year in May, which marks its slowest advance since March 2021. For today's decision, most of the 46 economists polled by Bloomberg expect the Fed to keep rates unchanged at today's meeting. Now, while there are expectations of a pause for now, the lingering question is whether the Fed will return to hiking rates in July at its next meeting. All eyes and ears will therefore be on what the Federal Reserve's commentary on inflation and policy responses sounds like, and whether that grants them enough room for a singular pause to give way to an extended one. Back to you.
And one of the companies in focus today is Maruti Suzuki, continuing its good run. Maruti Suzuki's Shashank Srivastav says that the company is expecting a growth of 24% in the SUV segment and aiming for a bigger market share pie. While speaking to BQ Prime, the Maruti top brass said that new launches will aid the volume of growth for the company. Listen in.
SUV segment has been growing with the customer preference going towards that shape of vehicle and the type of vehicle. In fact, the segment about 4 years back was only about 26% of the market. Not today, it is almost 45% of the market, and clearly the largest segment. And when you look at Maruti Suzuki, we have a market share of 65% or thereabouts in the non-SUV segment, if you leave SUV aside. But the SUV, our market share last year was just 12.3%. And therefore, our overall market share was under 45%. Clearly, if we have to achieve our target and our stated objective is get to 50% market share in the middle term, we have to increase our market share in SUV sector. And from 12%, one of the big reasons we found, when we analyzed this, that while the segment has grown big and a lot of competitors have come in, there are 46 brands in this segment. We had only one, which was the Brezza. Obviously, we needed to strengthen our portfolio, and that's what we have done with our Vitara. We have also launched the Jimny and the Fronx. As a result, in market share has improved from 12%, which it was last year, financial year, to in April, May to 20%. And our target is to get to about 24-25% share this year and become the number one manufacturer in SUV sector also. That should improve our overall market share as well.
And that's all we have for you in this segment of Let's Talk Business. Thanks very much for watching.